Hello, everybody. It's Thursday night. It's the first night of the 2021 that we're going live on the Smart Connector group with our podcast, and I have an absolutely amazing guest for you tonight. Welcome, Sapna Pieroux.
Hello, Jane. Really lovely. Happy New Year. Really lovely to be with you.
Yeah. So, Sapna, you're a brand marketing specialist, and we've had a really exciting chat before we started. So we're going to talk about everything to do with brand tonight. But before we actually get into that, I'd love you to just introduce yourself. Tell us how you came to be a brand specialist. What's your history and your background?
Oh, wow. Well, where do I start? My name's Sapna Pieroux, and I'm a brand consultant, designer, author of, can I plug my book?
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
Get Visible. Let's Get Visible. And a speaker. So I've been in my current business, InnerVisions ID. It's coming up to 6 years now, and we work with entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and businesses and help them get brand clarity, stand out in their industry, and supercharge their business growth, which is the prospect of the book as well. We work with a lot of impact-driven businesses and people that are really trying to make a difference, and they're the people that I really love working with. My background is kind of quite convoluted, but I studied as a graphic designer many years ago. And I always knew that I wanted to help businesses, but I realized when I came out of my design degree that I knew nothing really about business. They don't prepare you on creative courses for design, which means that quite often, you end up with designers that don't really understand business. But then, of course, business people don't really understand design and designers either. So I thought I'd take a postgrad in marketing. And so I studied that, and I thought, well, if I can understand how design fits into the marketing mix and can support a business plan, then that would give me my own USP, which is kind of what happened. But then I fell into marketing. So I've actually worked as a marketer in media. And I've worked at design agencies, so I've been the client and I've been the designer. I've been on both sides. I've experienced the frustrations of both sides, and that's kind of what really led me to write the book, because it's targeted at business people, and it helps them. It really breaks down brand and how to create a really engaging brand that will connect with your target audience, but then also communicate it to your creative much better. Because actually you're responsible for creating your brand, not your designer. Anybody who goes to a designer and says, I want you to create my brand, that's kind of quite lazy delegation, I think. You're in charge of your brand, and you should be. So it's the designer's role to make that brand visual. So that's kind of what the book is about. But it wasn't all. I worked in media for quite a long time, and then I met my husband, and we ended up having children. And my second baby, I ended up getting postnatal depression. So I kind of had to take a step back from media. I was working in media at the time, and I just sort of felt I didn't know how women with 2 children. I don't know if you've got children, Jane, but I just couldn't understand how anybody with 2 children could actually hold a job down. So I decided to take 3 years off. I didn't start off thinking it was going to be 3 years, but it ended up being 3 years. And I actually took on another degree in interior design, because that's what you do when you've got a toddler, a baby, and postnatal depression, is you pile more pressure on yourself. So I thought, I'll do that when the baby sleeps, But in that time, my husband started his business, the Walpole Partnership. He's in IT, so we're very, very different people. And I did his branding and his brochures, and his branding and brochures got seen at an entrepreneurial event, where the speaker actually held up his brochure and said, this, guys, is the gold standard, and you should be, this is what you should be aiming for. And the guy that did that was a guy called Andrew Priestley. I don't know if you're aware of him. He's a top 100 business coach. He actually ended up writing the foreword for my book. Many years later, we got to know each other. He didn't know me at the time. And Andy came home with 7 business cards that day. And I tell the story. I was in the kitchen with a baby on a hip and stirring, making tea. And then my toddler playing near my feet or sort of grabbing onto my leg. And my husband came in with these 7 business cards. And I said, what's that? And he said, it's a load of entrepreneurs that want to work with you. So that was kind of my accidental business that sort of started 6 years ago. And it's gone from strength to strength then. been sin.
Amazing. Amazing. It's interesting that you talk about media and how tough it is, or how tough it was. I don't know whether it's the same now for women with young children, because there's a common perception that media is a very female-friendly business, and indeed there are a lot of women that gravitate towards media because it's quite a creative business and it's quite intuitive. So women kind of tend to feel quite comfortable in that environment.
Definitely.
But it's also incredibly punishing. And you know, when I think back of the when I had young children, I was actually working. I was running a design agency myself, but it was a television design agency, and it was, all the clients were international. So I was actually doing a lot of traveling, and it was just impossible. The hours were so long, the pressure was so intense. You know, I can completely understand why you wanted to take a step back and actually reevaluate. But it sounds like everything happened in the right way at the right time and for the right reason for you, Sapna.
Yeah, I kind of got lucky.
Yeah, which is amazing. That's really, really good. Okay, so just before we get into it, I just wanted to go back to a point that you made earlier about impact-driven businesses. So how would you define an impact-driven business for some of our viewers or listeners who don't really know what that means?
It's businesses that are kind of, their purpose is not just about making money. They've got a higher purpose. It may be that they give a percentage of their takings to charities, and we certainly do that. I've been saying that we give 1%. I worked it out, and it's 2% and then plus. But you know, with everybody that works with us, we give 1%, and then we give charitable donations through the year. We support various causes. It may be that a charity, you know, does some outreach work or charity work on top of, you know, it might be volunteer work, or it may be that they, you know, I mean, we write a blog about green issues every year. I write a blog because that's something that I'm very passionate about. So it's something that we operate our business on very, in a very green way as well. And all the materials that we use, if we're sending out packages to clients, are either 100% recycled or recyclable.
Oh, no.
It's just having, you know, I think that businesses have a responsibility to help change the world and not make the world a worse place for you know, doing business in. And certainly it's something that, you know, the future of brand, I've been doing some talks around the future of brand, and it's something that's becoming increasingly more important for consumers as well.
Yeah.
That a business acts with transparency and with integrity, and you know, cares for the planet and cares for people. It's this sort of phrase of people before profits, and you know, it's just operating a business with heart. Me, and I like those kind of businesses. We are one of those businesses, and we like working with businesses that feel that same way as well.
Absolutely. It's so important. And I am also a business like that. And I also love businesses like that. I totally subscribe to that. So that's absolutely brilliant. Okay. So let's actually get on to defining brand, Sapna, because I know that's also something that we talked about. Now, a lot of people think that brand is the fluffy stuff. And I come up against this all the time. So what would you say to people that say, oh, yeah, it's all that fluffy stuff? What would
it's
you
funny,
say?
actually, because our strapline is, and that's exactly why I put it as, our strapline is branding that means business. Because that's, you know, I mean, I've always had a very, you know, sort of business focused head as well, not just a creative, but for me, if you, and there are a lot of people who commission design, and actually they don't know what they need, they don't know how to ask for it, they get something that's completely inappropriate for their business, and it doesn't work, and then they kind of think, oh, I've just wasted this money, or it looks pretty. But if you've just commissioned a beautiful logo and you know, you've just commissioned a piece of art, if it's not actually supporting your business goals and your business vision. So sorry, I've forgotten what the question was, but
why is brand not just about the fluffy stuff?
It's not just about the fluffy. So everything that we do, I mean, I've developed a process called the vision process, which is, it starts with strategy, and it's business strategy and marketing strategy, using my business side, and then, you know, writing the brief almost. And when I take clients through this, it's, you know, what are your business, what's your business vision, what's your customer vision, because we also have to consider, you know, who the customer is and where they are and where they want to be as a result of working with you. And we build that all in, and then it's kind of, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be famous for? Why are people going to queue up and want to work with you? So we kind of get all that. I mean, I've got this process down so slickly that we can actually create an entrepreneur's brand in a day. In the vision process. So the morning is all about strategy, and then in the afternoon we design, and it works. I mean, I was actually working out over Christmas that we've done 64 of these brand days now, and 40 of them were last year. But to actually just, because one of the things that I identified was that entrepreneurs don't have time. One of the things they really lack is time. So why waste, you know, 3 to 4 weeks, even longer, going back and forth and back and forth? Actually, if we can get this done. Entrepreneurs are also control freaks. That's why we start our own businesses, right? Because we want to create something that's ours. So this process is collaborative, and therefore you end up with a brand that is truly yours and you feel real ownership of. So, you know, but brand is not just a logo. It's you know, it's every part of your business. Every touch point of your business is your brand, and it's your customer experience. Your customer experience is your brand. You know, if somebody has a bad you know, kind of experience, and then you get negative reviews, that can you know, you can spend years trying to build a reputation, and then, you know, all of that's gone if people don't have the right experience. So brand is, I've got a model, if I can show you, because I got asked to write about this. It's just on page 38 of my book, just here. I came up with this. Sorry if you can't, StreamYard. Can you see that now? I can't see me. Yeah, the do say see model. So I'm just showing you that whilst, so you can see it's the concentric circles, the Venn diagram. So that it's the 3 pillars of building your brand. And so it's kind of like the number one mistake that entrepreneurs make when they are creating their brand is they will think about, the first thing you'll think about is your do, which is what you're going to do to make a difference to what your business is. It's the nuts and bolts of it. It's the equipment, the people, the environment that you operate in, whether it's a room in your house or offices back in the olden days. It's kind of like what do you need to make this business kind of go, and what is it that you're selling? What's the difference that you're going to make? That's your do. Without a do, you don't have a business. If you don't have a do, you don't have a business. The next thing that people will focus on is their say, because if you don't tell people about it, then you don't have a business, because nobody will know, right? So your say is your written and spoken word. So it's your elevator pitch, it's your social pitch, it's your social media. It's doing interviews like this and getting out there. It's, again, talking on stage back in the days when we were allowed to do that. It's the blurb on your website. It's the the blurb in your brochures. It's if you write a book. This is my say. This is a big part of my say. And so the say is the written and spoken word. Now the problem is that people forget about the C. They don't put as much value on it. You'll know, you used to have a brand agency, but certainly from entrepreneurs, the thing that I saw over and over again, and I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs now, is that they will leave the C to the last minute. They don't give it as much thought or put as much strategy behind it as they will their do and their say, right? Mm-hmm. So they'll try and do it themselves. They'll try and do it on the cheap. Go to Fiverr or something like that, or Upwork. And that's fine to get started if you really are, really trying to bootstrap things. But the problem is that the C is the first impression. And that's when, so as we as entrepreneurs will think about the do first, then the say, and then the C. And I've seen this happen. I've had one client who actually got her mum to design her logo for her. And that didn't work out so well. She was actually looking for a rebrand, and her mum just hand drew a bird on her old logo to try and make it look more friendly. And that didn't really work. So, people try to fudge it and do it on the cheap and do it quickly and it is actually giving the wrong impression of the business. It can damage that first impression, because if we focus on do, say, see, actually consumers come at your brand the other way. They will go on the first impression first. And only if they like what they see will they bother to read on to find out what you've got to say. And only then will they find out what you do. So that first impression, they say that it takes 6 seconds before you know if you want to work with someone. And that's in real life. On
Yeah.
social media, it's a lot faster than that. People are scrolling. How fast are people scrolling on their phones?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I definitely subscribe to that. I mean, you wouldn't turn up to a first business meeting in a crumpled old T-shirt that you'd slept in the night before, would you?
No, I just changed out of my crumpled old T-shirt before I came on here.
Funny enough.
So, well, I've been homeschooling today, so you know, I was like, oh, I can't dress up all day.
No.
Realities of lockdown life. But no, the actual. Do you know how much social media we go through every day, Jane? By on average,
No.
96 meters.
96 meters,
96
really?
meters. To put
Wow.
this in Google stat, that just to put that into context is the height of Big Ben.
Ooh.
Okay,
Really?
or
That's average.
that's average.
Wow.
So, so if you are putting a post out there, or a tweet, or a video, it's kind of a little bit overwhelming. If you think people are doing this, right? And I've got some stats here. If I'm just this is globally 500 million tweets, 350 million plus photos up to Facebook, 4.2 billion posts like on Instagram, and 5 billion YouTube videos watched every day.
5 billion YouTube videos.
So how the hell do you stand out? How do you stand out as an entrepreneur, putting out a post, putting out a blog, right? And your brand needs to stand out. And the first thing that you've got to do is get people's attention visually. The first thing you've got to do is have a strong brand, because you are in this sea of, so that's kind of what I help people do, is create that standout brand. That's what the vision process does, is help people get visible, because I've got it down to this formula, if you like, but it's a process, and it's it doesn't mean that everybody ends up looking the same. Quite the opposite. It means that we actually, when everybody else is zigging, I intentionally take people the other way, but with strategy. So it's not, we don't just go, well, we'll make you pink and you'll stand out in a sea of blue. But it's all to do with strategy, and it's still use color psychology, but there are other ways to stand out. So the idea is to stand out enough to catch people's eyes and to surprise them a little bit as they're scrolling. So they're just enough to make them go, oh, catch that attention. And then you've got them, and then it's down to your copy, and then it's down to your content.
Really, really interesting. So how do people, how would you actually arrest someone's attention visually online then?
Well, there are many ways. I mean, the process takes you through. I mean, the third part of the vision process. So it's vision. So it's visualize, inner brand, stand out, image, output, and nurture. And the standout phase is where we really work on that. How are we going to look different from the competition? So when I work with a client, we look at, say if it's a business coach, we start off with Google image search and kind of go, business coach logos or something, search. And then it might be, we look at related industries around that. So there might be business training company logos or business, it depends on what the industry is. At the beginning of last lockdown, I worked with a tiler who wanted to, increase his business, and he had about 3 or 4 people working for it, but he wanted to move into not just doing residential homes, but actually working with developers, really scaling his business up, which he's managed to do since, and he's now got a 6-figure business. So Ricky and I looked at tiling company logos. Now, tilers are just not known for their great design skills, and most of them have just got their name on the side of the van.
Yeah.
So there's one way, or they've got like something done with squares, right? Because that's tiles. So one way of standing out in your industry, I mean, for Ricky, we got absolutely no inspiration from the tiling industry whatsoever. So we look at something else, and we actually looked at the world of interior design. So we looked at interior design logos, and actually that's where he wanted to be, sort of, in that sort of space, and talking to developers at that kind of level. So we took more of our inspiration from there. So it's about taking inspiration from not necessarily your own industry. If you look like everybody else in your industry, or you kind of go, well, actually, so business coaches use blue, and they might use specifics, sort of maybe a sans serif font or a serif font, and you're going to do the same as everyone else. You're going to look the same, and you're not going to stand out in their industry. So it's about understanding what I call industry norms, which help people recognize you. So when they're scrolling really fast, you can't look unrecognizable, because otherwise people won't get that you're in that industry. But it's a really fine line between looking recognizable in your industry and actually being able to show your uniqueness. Sometimes the uniqueness comes in just being better designed, because there's so much bad design out there. So just having a modicum of beauty about your brand, or, you know, that it's actually clever logos and clever branding quite often catches the attention as well. It's something to make you look again. So something clever typographically quite often works as well. And I think the more intelligent looking brands are the ones that for me stand out, and for quite a lot of my clients as well. Maybe that's just because I attract a lot of intelligent clients. I don't know.
I'm sure you do. So it's an interesting topic, because good design means higher prices wherever you go. So if you go to, obviously we're in lockdown at the moment, so none of the bars or the restaurants are open. But when I used to go into central London, you know, you'd go into some beautiful cocktail bars or some hotels or whatever, and they would look absolutely stunning. And you'd know that you'd have to pay 15 or 20 pounds for a cocktail, and that, you know, some tiny little plate would cost you like 25 pounds or something like that. But
I miss those days.
Pardon?
I miss those days.
Oh my God, so do I. I was just thinking tonight, I just, you know, I would give anything just to go and have one of those nights actually at the moment. And they say it's going to last till March, but never mind. We will
moving on.
Yeah, on, yes. So really, I totally subscribe to the power of quality design. And I think that whether it's in one of those hotels or bars or luxury apartments or whatever, or whether it's a brochure or the way that you dress and the way that you appear, then it all serves to increase your value, doesn't it? And I think that is the commercial impact of good design, isn't it?
Absolutely is. That's why, you know, the packaging industry exists, you know, and I can't remember who said it. I think it was Wolf Ollins, who's a design guru, and he said, you know, with two products of equal quality and you know, equal ability, you know, quality, whatever, and the one with the most attractive packaging will win, the most attractive exterior.
Yes.
And we are quite judgy as human beings on kind of first appearances. I mean, I know I got somebody from LinkedIn kind of contacted me this sometime last year, and I was actually in the market for what they were selling. So I went onto their website. They'd sent the link, and I went onto their website, and it invited me to book an appointment. There was a typo on the front page, on the big button, saying book an appointment. Now that's the first impression. And I just kind of booted straight away. You know, I was just like, so that first impression really matters. But it comes from, you know, even when we're cavemen, you know, and even when we're babies, it's a really primeval thing that better looking things are better for us, right? So you know, we're sort of programmed to look for the best looking partner, because a symmetrical face and a symmetrical body was a sign of a healthy upbringing, right? A healthy gene pool. If they had disease or something, it might make their face lopsided or their body lopsided, and that's so we're genetically more attracted to more symmetrical, good-looking faces. A piece of fruit, if it gets you know, moldy or old, it will start getting shriveled, and it might start getting moldy. And we decide if something's good for us or not way before we get close enough to, you know, kind of taste it or smell it or anything like that. So sight is a really powerful, you know, we decide what's good for us in the world. And the same thing happens with packaging. You know, the things that are most attractive will appeal to us. The food that's photographed on packaging has to look attractive, right? There's people who actually make a career out of making food look attractive to put it on packaging. So it is for people to not, you know, I've had some entrepreneurs, not people that have gone on to work with me, who kind of go, oh, I'm not really into brands, I'm not really into branding. And you kind of think, okay, but they don't realize that they may not be into branding, but the vast majority of the world do use these, you know, do act on these cues, and it's not conscious. It's a lot of this is subliminal. how a brand looks, and it just makes you look more polished. If you look more polished and you look more professional, if you've got a great product or service, and you're saying that you've got a great product or service, but then you don't look polished and professional, you look like you've got a cheap generic logo or something that's homemade or whatever, then it casts aspersions as to, actually, well, if you're cutting corners on your business, are you going to be cutting corners with mine? It kind of, if you don't have that pride in your own business to invest in it, then how much care are you going to take of my business? So it reflects well. And it's just like dressing up, putting on some makeup, and, kind of, it's putting your best face forward, really.
It is. So let's, but before we go on, I just wanted to say hello. There's a few people on here. Lucky, hello there. Samir, hello. There's somebody who hasn't registered, but anyway, they are fully appreciative. So if you have any questions for Sapna, then put them into the chat. We'd love to hear your questions. So, Sapna, let's talk about this experiential issue of brand. So the customer experience, and this is one of my favorite subjects, actually, because, as you said, the visual stuff is really, really important, because it's signposting something, isn't it? It's signaling something about a business if you've got that very attractive and coherent brand. But as you said, the intangible stuff, the stuff that you can't see, the customer experience, that's just as much a part of brand, isn't it? That's the visual stuff. So let's go into that a little bit. What is a good brand experience in terms of that intangible stuff? What would it look like?
Well, it's obviously different for every business. And when I start, so the first part of the vision process, when I start working, we start with visualize, which is the big picture stuff. And this is where we start talking about those brand aspirations. And I'd encourage all your viewers and listeners to do this little exercise, actually, if they're thinking about going for a rebrand, to do this. And it's a really fun thing to do. I call it my FAB exercise, because it's 5 aspirational brands.
Okay.
So I ask my clients to think about their 5 aspirational brands for their business, right? So it's like, when my business grows up, or, when it launches, I eventually, in 12 months, in 18 months, I want to be thought of as this brand is thought of. So have you got any aspirational brands, Jane? Do you look at anybody? And it doesn't have to be in your industry. In fact, I encourage people to think outside their industry as well, because that's where the fresh thinking comes in. If we can take, a mixture of within and without, but just even one brand that you aspire, you look at. Wow.
I am incredibly loyal to Apple, and I always have been for a very, very long time, because when I ran my own design agency, we grew up with Apple. I mean, Apple to me, Apple means design. It means good design.
Yes.
So I'm Apple everything. I'm Apple, computers, laptops, phones, anything and everything.
So are we.
Yeah. And my daughter actually works for Samsung, and in fact she works in the brand department. She's a marketing manager, so she's working on some of their flagship launches. And Samsung, I know it's all kind of very, very flash and it's a very impressive brand, but it just leaves me cold compared to Apple. So I know Apple's obviously one of the biggest brands in the world, but if I had to be aspirational around my brand, I would like to be an Apple. Rather than a Samsung.
So what about Apple is aspirational for your own company and for your own brand? So that's what I eke out of my clients. Because Apple is actually one of our aspirational brands as well.
Right.
Because we did this exercise for our own company. But what about Apple? Do people think of Apple and you'd want them to think of for your brand?
Okay, so I like the slogan that says "Think different." I like to think that I am a thinking different kind of person, because I like to think outside the norm, and I like to bring fresh perspectives to people and actually stimulate their thinking and help them see the world in a different way. So that really resonates with me.
Yeah.
And then I like the simplicity of the Apple logo, the Apple itself, just the shape. you know, apples are crisp, aren't they? They're fresh. You know, just they're silver. Obviously, the Apple Mac laptops are nice, got a nice sheen to them. So they kind of feel quite sleek. They've got that, kind of modern, modern kind of sleek look. Everything Apple.
So that's what you'd want for your brand as well. You'd want,
I think,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're probably a very visual person, I think, because you're talking very much about the visual side. But so some of the other aspirations that people might have said for Apple, for example, for us, it's form and function coming together beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
So everything that we do, that we design, has to work. It's not enough for it to just look pretty. It has to work. So for us, Apple is very aspirational because that is form and function coming together. Apple is also great on things like customer service and product knowledge. And it's the experience when you go into the stores as well, you know, the way that you're treated. So there's all of these things around the brand that's not just about the logo, or just about the visual, but actually it's how people feel when they interact with that brand. That is brand. All of that is brand. So another of our aspirational brands is John Lewis.
Right.
It isn't a very cool brand and it's not a very designer brand, but it's a safe pair of hands, right? And it's one of those people, again, it's knowledge, it's experience, it's trust. It's, you know, never knowingly undersold, all of that kind of stuff, good value, but it's actually, you know, whoever comes in is made welcome. We didn't want to be, you know, kind of, I've had one of my clients say to me, I love working with you, Sapna, because you're not like one of those cool designers. And I was like, oh, great. But what she meant was, you know, not standoffish and friendly and approachable. So that's kind of something else that we want as part of our experience, our brand experience, is that we're not, you know, we're not snooty or kind of like, you know, up there and too cool for school. We actually, and we talk to people on their level, you know, we talk to business owners in a way that business owners understand rather than trying to bamboozle them. So the 5 aspirational brands, it helps people understand that brand is not just about a logo, and brand is not just about a set of colors and typefaces. It's actually how your customer feels and how you want people to think of you. And then it's about communicating that. When we do the branding, it's about communicating that brand promise. But then it's down to the entrepreneur and the business to make sure that that happens throughout the business at every touch point. So it's easy, you know, to work with you, and it's pleasurable, and it's, you know, exciting, or whatever it is that you want to create for your customer.
Amazing. Well, this conversation has actually stimulated some discussion in the chat. So we've got lots of people coming through with their aspirational brands. So I'm going to ask anybody that's watching live to put their aspirational brand in the chat. But we've got Lucky says Body Shop is my aspiration, and links for my perspiration.
That's funny.
Okay. Aston Martin says somebody else.
Very aspirational.
Innovation. So there's lots of kind of comments coming through. And we've got a question which says, hi, Jane and Sapna, if you were creating a new brand, could you name a few things that would need to be done early on? So brand new brand. I would say that firstly, kind of, well, you need to get a good name for the company as well first. You know, I actually worked with, I'm a brand mentor for a company called Shifts to Success. And when I worked with the guy, Alex Siri, he approached me about 3 years ago to brand his new company. And it's Shifts to Success helps police officers and now members of the NHS to leave the police and to become entrepreneurs, right? Because quite a lot of people actually want to leave the police force, and sadly quite a lot of people want to leave the NHS as well. And they were feeling that they didn't really have an outlet, they didn't have anywhere to go. So he's created this as an ex police officer himself. And it helps them, you know, get to financial freedom. But he'd originally called the company Escape the Shifts.
And it's like, well, we started talking to each other, and I thought, do you know what? That's just an awful name. I wanted to work with him, but I had to be honest with him and say, but your company name isn't great. And he was like, why? Well, my mates love it. And I was like, yeah, but your mates are all police officers. So, the greatest will in the world. They don't really know about brand or branding, and they were all wanting to escape. That was their thought. But actually, I sort of renamed the company Shifts to Success, and that's like taking these shift workers to their definition of success, but also about the shifts that they are going to have to make mentally and actually to get to that success. Oh, he was on. Oh, somebody says, I know Alex Siri. He was on my podcast as a guest. Right. Okay. Who's that? Facebook user.
Yeah.
So that you have to have the right name. And I'm quite a positive person. So I always talk to clients about the transformation and, what's the transformation that you're going to bring. If as an entrepreneur, you've only got that second, then it helps if your business name helps people understand. And certainly if you've got a strap line or a tagline, helps people understand the transformation and the difference that you're going to be able to make to them. As much as you can communicate in that second as they're scrolling past is going to help you cut through.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I totally agree. And I think the power of naming is incredibly important. And those, those tight little taglines and strap lines and elevator pitches and everything that just communicate what you do really concisely. Clearly, very, very important.
People haven't got time. People just haven't got time, and so reams of copy isn't going to cut it. Whenever we worked with clients and they give us a copy for their brochures or their copy for their websites, I always kind of look at it and go, right, half that, and then come back, because it's just too much. And every entrepreneur knows so much about their business. And sorry, Alex Siri, great idea. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Your success name is much better. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's why I do what I do. I can't remember what I was saying again. Gosh, this is probably a bit late.
Well, yes. So
name, strapline. You've got a second to get to cut through. Another thing is to have a strong looking brand. Now, if you can't afford that at the beginning, that's okay. It's okay to go to Fiverr. It's these things exist for a reason. But the thing that you're going to get is not going to help you stand out. And so all of this work that you're doing, if people don't see you, if people don't notice you, it doesn't matter how good a product or service is that you sell. If people aren't, you're as good as invisible. Hence the book, Let's Get Visible, because if you've got an invisible brand, then it doesn't matter. You can throw as much as you want at it. But if people don't get what you do within a second of scrolling past you, or not scrolling past you, then you're kind of missing a trick. Yes. So it's really about, invest as much as you can on that side of things, but make sure it's right. Really get clarity, though, as to what your business is about. What's the transformation that you want to make to the world? What's the value, and what's going to make you different? What's going to make you stand out from your competitors? And then really work on that and work on communicating that through everything that you do. That's what's going to make you stand out, right? If you're doing something differently, then play on that.
Definitely. So let's talk about brand assets for a minute. So you've got the messaging right. You've got a beautiful looking brand. You've got a nice name and a punchy kind of tagline, and it all aligns, and that's all great. Now you have to go out and express that to the world. So obviously the world has changed since lockdown over the last few months. We've had to adapt to a new normal. So what would you say are the most important routes to market for your brand right now?
Well, it's all digital, isn't it? Because we're not in person anymore. I mean, I do these one-day brand workshops, and as part of the package, we do a business card design, and you would be laughing at the amount of business owners that just go, well, I'm not going to need one of those then, am I? So can we do something else? But I'm like, well, it's good to have the business card design anyway, just because one day we will be out there again, and maybe you want to give someone your card, but and I think there will be a resurgence of like real things when we can be back into a space and things can get tangible. I think, brochure,
vinyl versus Spotify.
I know versus Spotify, but I think just being in real life, I think people are gonna, want to sample those real things again. But right now it's all digital, isn't it? Oh, Lucky said I'm hired. That's good. Thank you. So, you know, right now you've just got to make sure that the brand that you create works really well online, but also has the ability to work offline as well, because there will be a time where we go back to that as well, I think. And I think people are going to miss that sort of the tactile part of brand, I think is quite valuable as well.
Yeah, the tactile. Oh my gosh, that is something that we're all missing, isn't it? Actually being able to hold something in your hand.
Yeah,
And
you know, a heavy, thick brochure or something with a lovely, you know, print finish on it. Or one of the little tricks that I do with my entrepreneurs is get them a silver foil or a rose gold foil edge on their business cards. And it just adds that little, I've got one of my printers that does that. So you can have a really sleek looking business card, but then you've got that little pick of foil on the edge. And it just catches the light as you hand it over, and people love it. They absolutely love it.
I love that. Rose gold. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Oh, that sounds absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I did that for one of my clients, Emily Bell, and it cost her more to get them done, but she says they get exactly the right reaction whenever she hands them over. The other nice thing is, of course, when they're in your wallet, that your card stands out when they're in a stack. But so things like that, yeah. Metal and plastic business cards look pretty cool. Yeah, they can do, definitely.
Can you transfer a metallic look online? So could you, for example, introduce rose gold into your website or your...
Yeah, you can do it with a gradient. Yeah, you can do it with a gradient. So, and I have done that for, you know, a couple of my clients where they've wanted that sort of, I've got a client, my weddings, and we kind of did a kind of almost breathy application to the type. And then she actually had her cards printed with rose gold ink, and they look beautiful. They look absolutely stunning. Wow. And she sold her highest value package on her first sales meeting back in those days, and she handed over a card and sold her biggest package, which was $5,000. That was her first sales call. So these things do have, you know, obviously had the right impression. I had another client who used to charge £1,600 for one of her products. And she worked with me, and she put the price up. I'm not saying who it is. She put the price up to £2,600 for the very same product, and nothing else about it had changed. Nothing else about it had changed but the branding. And suddenly she felt, and her confidence levels. That's the other thing that we haven't talked about, is having a great looking brand makes you feel. I've had one client who, bless him, he's only 5'6". He said it made him feel 10 foot tall. Once he saw his branding, and it just, I see people's shoulders go back, and they do stand taller once they've got something they feel really proud of. I've had clients cry when they've seen their branding come to life on these one-day things. It's quite, you know, quite intense. And Happy New Year, Richard. And then, you know, and because it's all their hopes and dreams suddenly come to life.
Wow, that's
and
so
suddenly made visual, and it's really powerful. Dan has asked, do you think the amount of people moving their business online will make branding even more? Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's what I said right at the beginning of the talk, was we were talking about Jeff Bezos, and I think that's before we went live actually, and he said that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Well, right now nobody's in the room. We're all in our own room, but nobody's in the room, so your brand has to work even harder.
Yeah.
Because you're not in front of your clients, so your brand, and people are just scooting by. Everybody doing those posts, those 500 million tweets, and all of those Instagram posts. You need to have a brand that's not just that looks great, but also shows up consistently.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that when entrepreneurs get their brand guidelines and they go running off, and then they kind of get bored, I think, a little bit sometimes, and they kind of go, oh God, you're using these same colors every day with the same typeface. I know, I'm going to just add this typeface in there, or maybe just add another color in. And actually, consistency is so important. And actually, you should get bored of your brand guidelines. You should get bored, because you're seeing it 24/7, right? You're living and breathing it. But think about the fact that your customers are only seeing less than 5% of the content that you're putting out there. Right. So you need to be consistent so that they recognize you when you show up. Right. So we've been using our brand, you know, occasionally I get that, you know, we've got our brand is basically red, black and white.
Mhm.
I wear red, black and white. All our decks are red, black and white, all our branding is. And sometimes I think, oh, just shove a cyan in there and maybe a yellow. And because I get bored with it. But then it's like, no, let's pull it back and just pull yourself back, because this is what people recognize when it shows up, and people know it's us.
Yeah.
And that's what we want, right? I had one client who I branded, and yellow was her key color. Even though she came to me and she was like, I love black and white. I love black and white. And I'm only going to have black and white. And I was like, just humour me here. And I put this sunshine yellow in, and she went, oh, and she just went mad for it then. And she'd been to an event, and somebody had taken a photograph of her and posted it on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And I was scrolling, as you do with my daily 96 meters. And I kind of stopped and thought, I actually didn't recognize that. I didn't recognize it was her at this event because there was no yellow on the post. Oh. And I hadn't even noticed. Now, even more than that, when I was doing my book talk, and before the book had come out, I went to do a talk. One of my friends runs a local networking group, Ealing Business. I'm based in West London, so it's Ealing Business Buddies. My friend Felicity said, could you come and do a talk? She went, I don't actually know any authors. It was very exciting for Felicity that her friend had a book coming out. So I was like, yeah, all right. And it was going to be in a local cafe. There was maybe 30, 40, entrepreneurs coming down on a weekday morning. And I thought, well, it's only Ealing. I'm not going to wear one of my dresses that I wear on stage or anything like that. So I wore a black and white dress. I wear red quite often when I'm on stage. And when I'm certainly on Zoom and things like this. So and my friend came up to me, my friend Emily, the life coach who I did the rose gold edge on her card for, she came up to me and she went, after the talk, she went, you're not wearing red. And I went, all right, well, I'm still wearing black and white. They're my brand colours too. And she went, no, you're not wearing red. I was going to wear my red dress. But actually, I thought, no, I'm not going to wear my red dress because Sapna's speaking and she's going to be wearing red. And now you're not wearing red. And I thought, I didn't realise it had become an expectation.
Yeah.
An actual expectation. So now I went out and bought loads of red dresses around my book launch time. So it was January, and I got a new dress for my book launch party in February. And of course, then lockdown happened. So a load of them are on hangers with the tags still on. Oh. And I had to buy a load of Zoom shirts instead.
Oh, I know. That's it. That's the way it goes, isn't it?
Colour is so important. Colour is really, I've got a stat here. Apparently 80% of people use colour to recognise a brand. 80% of people. So if you keep switching up your colours, you're not going to get recognised. And recognition is the first part of know, like and trust. Right? People do business with businesses they know, like and trust, but they're never going to get to know you unless they get to recognise you in the first place. So having that consistent brand is so much more important than people realise. And once they've got it and they see that cut through and they see that recognition and they see how sure it makes them look and professional and polished, then they kind of get it. But for people who've not had it done, they don't realise the power.
No. Well, I remember when we used to do our corporate identity programs, we did big projects for global television companies.
Yeah.
So we did the branding for ITV, for example. All of the ITV logos and everything. So I was also involved in programs for British Airways and Discovery Networks and some of the really big media brands. And what would happen is we'd end up, and I'm sure that you've seen this as well, but we had to create this brand Bible that was about that thing. With every single guideline. And there would be somebody whose job it was to analyze all of the communications, all the brand communications that went out and actually identify when that brand guideline was not being followed.
Absolutely. Because I used to work in sponsorship and promotions for the likes of EMAP and Chrysalis Radio Group and Telegraph Media Group. So I've kind of worked on the media side, but I would be working with those big brands and getting their brand into advertorials and online and everything like that. So I looked after the Empire Awards. Do you remember Empire magazine? Yeah. I don't even know if it's still going. Is it still going? I think it is. Empire. So I used to work, I was the business development director for Empire magazine for a couple of years, and I worked with Sony Ericsson. Yeah. And they were so hot on that tone of green that, it wasn't just in the magazines and online, but it was if we printed out signage for like the events. When we actually did the Empire Awards, all the signage and it was just an absolute nightmare. But yes, that consistency was so key, so important. But when we work with entrepreneurs, I mean, on the bigger packages, our brand guidelines are like 12 to 16 pages. And when I work on these one-day things, sometimes they're like 1 to 3 pages, because actually what entrepreneurs need is something that's concise and short and gets the basics right. Just so that, because you don't want a big fat tome, you're not going to use it, right? That'll go in a drawer.
Yeah.
If you're a business owner, you're a busy business owner, that'll just go in a drawer and not get used. So I prefer to keep them short, sharp, and to the point. And I've seen a lot of brand guidelines with a lot of fluff in there that you don't really need. So yeah, you know, I prefer to make them really user friendly, just so they actually get used.
Well, what can I say? This has been the most amazing interview, Sapna. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So Richard says Happy New Year. So Happy New Year to you, Richard. Thank you very much for everybody that's listened in tonight. Sapna, show us your book again and tell us, is it available on Amazon?
It's available on Amazon, and I found it on Waterstones as well, actually, this Christmas. I was going on Waterstones to buy something, and so they're listing it as well.
Amazing.
And
business book.
It won an award for Startup Inspiration, the Business Book Awards in March. So, and I accepted my award in my awards dress, but from my living room.
Oh, okay.
We've just gone into lockdown, so I was very sad about that. But yeah, so it's a good book if you're looking at brand or you want to know more about brand. Even my mum read it and she said, "I finally understand what you do." So you know, that's a great recommendation from my mum. If my mum likes it, if she gets it, then anybody else will. Because my mum really doesn't understand what I do at all.
Amazing what she does now.
She does now. Bless her. She was at the book launch as well. She was very proud.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks again, Sapna, and thank you for everybody that's joining us. And I'm sure that was a very enlightening discussion on the power of brand, and I'm sure it's moved many people a little bit further down the pitch in terms of their understanding and appreciation.
You connect me on LinkedIn. You know, if you want to find out more about brand or ask me any questions, then drop me a note on LinkedIn and tell me that you saw me on Jane's show, because I get a lot of random requests and I don't accept them all. So do say that you saw me on Jane's show and I'll connect with you there.
Brilliant. Okay, bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.